Welcome back to the Scrubdom, everybody, and I've got a bit of a treat for all of you today, because today, while it is a Palworld episode, it's not a Palworld episode. Welcome to the first episode of Bug Hunt. For anyone who doesn't know, I worked as a game tester for about 5 years. I actually stopped being a game tester. I actually lost my job about mid last year. Honestly, I loved this. I loved just getting to work with a bunch of nerds. I do kind of miss it, but at the same time, I don't think I ever want to go back. Maybe if some other company comes to the area and they're looking for game testers, maybe then I'll toss my hat into the ring. But I also know that a lot of people who watch games and play games and just do anything with games want to become game testers. So the purpose of this video, and there will be more videos like it, I don't know the consistency that they're going to come out, but there will be videos like it, is to give everybody sort of an inside look at being a game tester. I'm going to show you all a little bit of what it looks like to test a game. And it's going to be a very simple process. I'm going to put on screen real quick a very simple mock bug report, something I would probably have to put in 5 to 6 to 10 times a day, depending on the different company I worked for. We're going to go over some basic information, but first, let's find the bug, and I think I found a good one. I actually saw a video on this the other day. I've already tested to confirm that it still exists, and this bug is actually a Palworld bug. Early access games like Palworld and many others are definitely going to have quite a few bugs inside of them. How game-breaking they are is a variable. This one actually has to deal with dungeons. Now, if you're trying to get a bunch of loot, I have been able to confirm by watching a couple other videos, this is affecting other dungeons, even some of the late game dungeons in Sakurajima and the Feywilds. And this entire bug is very simple. We actually have a pretty good control area just right up here up front. So we got the 2 ore nodes, the iron node, the ore node, the 2 palladium frag nodes, and the cave mushrooms. And yes, this bug does also affect chests and the end dungeon chests as well. I will show that off once we actually get the bug activated. Luckily, activating the bug is actually pretty simple. After you've gone in the dungeon, all you gotta do is leave. And then just go back in. Now, you can leave and go back in to make it trigger multiple times. You can get it to go up to about 6 times, but any more than that, and I've noticed there is a bit of computer slowdown, the one on the area that I tested it on. But to start with the cave mushroom, if the bug worked, there should be 2 cave mushrooms here. Yep, 2 cave mushrooms. And I did not repair my pickaxe. You know, I guess we're doing it 3 times. I'm gonna run and repair my pickaxe real quick. All right, I've got a repaired pickaxe now. Normally these nodes give about 40, and one thing I have noticed is it doesn't affect every single node every time you leave and enter. It's sort of very picky on the nodes that it affects. Let's see if we can find one that it is affecting. This one is dropping about 3 per swing now, though. Yeah, we've already surpassed the 40 on this one. Yeah, 120 palladium fragments. Pretty sure it's also going to affect this one here. We'll know if we hit about 240. Yep, so far we can confirm cave mushrooms, palladium fragments inside of this one. It probably is affecting the ore node. Let's go ahead and give it a swing. Is it dropping 3? Yep. Dropping 3, probably affecting the ore nodes too. I would knock it down, but, you know. Carry capacity. Let's go find a treasure chest and a couple other pickup items we can pick up. Ah, there's one. The lotus. Let's see if it's affecting the lotus. Due to my testing, I've seen it is. So we've gone out and re-entered twice, so there should be 3 here. Yep, it's affecting the lotuses. So it's a great way to farm lotuses if you need to right now. Now, the only thing I want to... Now, there's only 2 things left to test, and that is chests. I should be able to open this about 3 times. Yep. And we need to test the in-game loot. It doesn't affect enemy spawns. It's affecting items you can pick up and items you can open. And the last area that this bug should affect is the end dungeon loot, which 3 chests. 3 chests. All right. So that confirms that the bug is working. At least in my mind, that shows the bug is working. We've seen it affect cave mushrooms, chests, nodes, and the in-game loot. So, it's time to write up the bug. And luckily, writing up the bug is real simple. So I'm gonna actually put the bug on the right side here because I can. Now, for this mock bug report, we're gonna be looking at some very simple and basic information. The most of the information we're going to be looking at is the name, the description, the reproduction steps, the reproduction rate, severity, and we might list the priority. We'll see if we get to that. Notes, and then one thing most companies are going to want, in fact, just about every company that I ended up working for wanted this: media, whether that be images or attached video. Most of this is pretty self-explanatory. Name of the bug, description, describe the bug. Reproduction steps, you're going to want to break down everything that you did that got to the bug to happen. And sometimes you even need to list some things beforehand, just to be certain. And you can go back and refine things to see, was this step really necessary, or was this a completely unnecessary step? In this case, let's say I made a thing before going to a dungeon, exited the dungeon, re-entered the dungeon, and then everything duplicated. I would want to list the thing that I made. Then if I were to go back to test it, I would see, can it be made with anything, or does it need anything to be made? And then I would alter it. So like, say first it was made with a handgun. Well, then I'd test with several other items to see if it works. And then I'd test without making anything just to see if it works. In this case, I didn't make anything. I just went into the dungeon, exited, went back in. Reproduction rate is just how many times we're able to get the bug to happen. Usually you want to test up to about 5 times. You don't have to test up to 5 times all the time. Sometimes the bug just happens, and it's such an egregious bug that you're gonna want to make a bug about it, just so people know. So like anything about has you like falling through the world, or a massive game blocker that blocks progression, you're gonna want to make a bug for that, even if you can only get it to reproduce once, or even if you've only seen it once. Severity, we're only going to focus on low severity and high severity. High severity is just what I was saying with if it's a massive game-breaking bug that doesn't let you progress, or maybe causes you to lose like a certain item that you need for progression, that's high severity. Things like this, a duplication bug, this is low severity. As for notes is just where you're going to list a bunch of additional information. Things like, I tested this on PC, I did not test on console, need additional testing on console. Or affects different items based on the number of times you enter and exit. Or like I said at the beginning, if you try to do it 6 or more times, it can actually affect performance. Just little notes so people know how much they need to go into and how much they don't need to go into. Additional information. Things that people are going to want to know. So I'm going to go ahead and break down into my process and how I went through all of this. Who knows, maybe it could help somebody by breaking it down this way. So the way I would always write the bug is I would actually not do the name first. I would jump straight to the description. Luckily, the description for this bug is really simple. Chests, ore nodes, lotuses, and items in the dungeon can be duplicated when exiting and re-entering the dungeon. It doesn't really need to be much more complicated than that. You can go much more in depth. Like if you have a bug that causes you to fall through the world, let's say when entering the desert village, after stepping by the first shop, the player will fall through the world and die. That would be a description that could happen at a later point. It's a little bit more descriptive of what's happening. And if it does apply when you walk past the first shop, you want to make sure it's listed in the description when you walk past the first shop. And now this is the big reason that I always skip the name, because the name pretty much needs to be a much shorter version of the description to tell you what is happening. So at a glance, someone can read the name and know what the bug is about. In this case, we know it's a duplication bug. We know the description describes sort of the process to duplicate. So just dungeon and re-entering duplicates items. Is it the most descriptive name? No. If I were to go back and give it a different name, it'd be items duplicated I'd duplicate items when re-entering dungeons, or honestly, I'm terrible with names. I'll straight up say that I'm terrible with names. I'm just gonna stick with the first one at this point. For your reproduction steps, in this case, it's real simple. We're just gonna focus on the bits that we have, because different companies are gonna want different additional things tied to it. In this case, we entered the dungeon, we left the dungeon, we re-entered the dungeon, we mined ore, we picked up cave mushrooms, picked up lotuses, we fought the boss pal. We did indeed fight the boss pal. I did actually fight it. And then we opened boss chests. Now, there is usually a 9th step that a lot of people want included with this, and the 9th step is usually just observe outcome. We're just gonna skip that step. This is what we did to make everything happen. This is what we did before and during the bug. Reproduction rate, I've already tested this a couple of times just to make sure it was happening. I've gotten a 5 out of 5 reproduction rate. One thing to take note of with reproduction rate, especially with this bug, since it occurs based on the number of times you've exited and re-entered, and there could be some nodes that aren't affected, you'll want to test multiple areas of the bug, and as long as you can keep getting similar results, the reproduction rate will go up. Severity, it's a low severity. It's not that heavy of a bug. It's not game breaking. It's not game blocking. It's a duplication bug. If I were to put a priority to this bug, I'd put a pretty low priority overall. Maybe if I were to rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm thinking maybe 2. Pretty low end, but something I would want to see fixed. As for notes, we already kind of went over the notes already, but affects different items in the dungeon each time the player leaves and re-enters. I have actually observed that with some of the other areas. Affects performance on some PCs when done 6 or more times. And it was only tested on PC. We need additional testing on console. And then the last thing I would attach is just like this video. I would actually take a much shorter version of this video, maybe just do like the ore node and the cave mushrooms to show like, hey, here's kind of how it's affecting. I would just attach it. Normally the video you want, depending on how bad the bug is up to a minute. And that's really the entire bug writing process. Sometimes you'll get asked additional questions like, hey, do you know if it affects this area? Hey, do you know if this is involved? And if you don't, you can just go back and check it. In this case, we kind of know what's being affected. It doesn't affect anything outside the dungeon, and we know it affects most non-enemy spawns. I haven't seen it affect any enemy spawns, but it affects most everything else based on the number of times you enter, exit, and re-enter. And then, yeah, that's just what I did for 5 years. And honestly, if this can give someone more information on just what it's like to be a tester, because I know a lot of people want to be testers, then honestly, more power to you. I really hope you guys get out there and can actually get out and test some games. And if you do test some games, when the game comes out, specifically when the game comes out, poke me. I'll give them a try. I'll play them. Mostly because I'm always interested in trying out new and unique games. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. This is definitely a much shorter episode. This is probably only going to be like 15 minutes after editing. I hope you guys enjoy this. This is something I've been wanting to start for a while. Also, for the mock bug report, I will actually have a downloadable version of it on the Scrubdom Discord sometime either later today or tomorrow. If it is tomorrow, it probably won't be till much later in the day tomorrow. I've got some stuff I have to take care of in the morning. It's usually why I don't do things on Saturdays. Anyway, until next time, don't scrub out.